As entrepreneurs, we understand the roller coaster of emotion that comes with bringing a business to life.
Most of the reason that companies fail is because the founder doesn't get out of the way of the growth of the company.
The reality is, whether you're building a company or scaling your side hustle, there's no way to completely avoid the chaos.
Everybody wants to be in an environment of control and not chaos.
Now, balance that with your personal life, that's where it gets even harder.
Your business is something that you need to pour into like a relationship.
Get the answers from top business leaders, authors, founders, and productivity experts so you can organize the chaos in your business.
There's no such thing as common sense. There's only documentation.
Welcome to Organized Chaos, the show where you can take a page out of business leaders' playbooks with me, your host, Chris Ronzio. Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Organized Chaos Live. Thank you for joining me on this Friday morning. This is going to be a fun one. Today's discussion's all about recapping our incredible annual small business event that we do, Playbook. So this year, Playbook 2022 was epic. We had something like 5,000 virtual people signed up, registered for this event, and this was the third time that we've done this event. So as always, we put together incredible speakers, and this lineup consisted of Seth Godin, Allyson Wes Felix of Saysh, Montel Jordan, and tons more. And so what we're going to do today is kind of just casually break it down, talk about the behind the scenes, talk about the biggest takeaways from those speakers, from the hosts of the event who put it on, me and my brother Jonathan. So joining me today is Jonathan Ronzio. He's Trainual's CMO. As I mentioned, he's my brother, known him for a long time, and he was the co-host of the event. So the two of us were lucky enough to be on stage together, having a lot of fun, talking to some incredible guests, and we're going to break it down for all of you here this morning. So to kick things off, if you are listening and you attended Playbook, I want to hear from you. Say hi in the chat, share any of your biggest takeaways or any questions that you had from what was going on behind the stage. But let's bring Jonathan in.
What's up, Chris?
Hey, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing good. It's Friday. It's night. It's a beautiful fall day out here in Boston. I'm gearing up for a hell of a weekend. We'll get into that. I know both of us are going to be out at the beginning of next week, and we can talk about that in a minute too. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I was just going to say, I want to talk about your weekend that you're about to have here because it's a pretty crazy adventure. You know, for anybody that has seen my book or heard about our core values, one of them is collect experiences. And I think Jonathan was like the originator of collect experiences because the stuff you do is crazy. And I know I've gotten into some of these adventures, but what's your weekend plan all about?
So Sunday, I'm flying out to Phoenix and then driving up to the Grand Canyon, and bright and early, probably somewhere around like 3 or 4 a.m. on Monday morning, heading out with two friends to do the rim to rim to rim run of the Grand Canyon, starting on the south rim, running to the north rim and back, which is roughly 50 miles, maybe just under, but we might try to just hit the 50 mark anyway. So it's a 50-mile run we're going to try and do across the Grand Canyon and back. On Monday, hopefully takes about 12 hours, maybe a little longer. Some crazy elevation gain, obviously starting on the rim, going down, up. It'll be a pretty intense little adventure.
So for people that are in Arizona, which I'm sure as some of the people listening, you've heard of rim to rim or rim to rim to rim. Like it's a typical Arizona kind of crazy adventure. But anyone that lives outside of the United States or anywhere around the country here may not even have heard of this because it is a grueling challenge. Like if you've ever seen pictures of the Grand Canyon, you know how vast it is and how crazy it is. And so even just like hiking to the bottom, you know, a lot of people ride on donkeys or mules or whatever, you know, to make that journey. You're running down, you're running up, you're running back down, you're running back up. It's like, it's pretty insane. So Jonathan, when he was coming here, planning this trip with his friends, he reached out and he's like, hey, you should do this with us. I was a clear no, like, no, thank you. I've got other things I'm planning for, I'm training for, but that's not one of them.
But so that's what I'm doing Monday. And where are you going Monday?
So Monday, I'm going to San Diego for another series of like medical tests. So I don't know if we've ever done an episode about this, about like being really proactive about your health. And so nothing's wrong, but coming into this year, I wanted to do almost like an executive physical to the max. Like I wanted to screen and make sure that I have nothing going on in my body that I need to be worried about. I have no early markers of anything. And so I found this place out in San Diego that does they map your entire genome, your whole DNA by taking blood. They test for like every illness and disease you could possibly have. They do full body MRI scans where they can detect, anything that's not supposed to be there down to like the tip of a pencil, like a dot, if you put a dot of pencil on paper. And so it really gave me the peace of mind that, I'm good health wise. But then you go on a recurring basis to just monitor your blood work and make sure that none of your levels are changing, or make sure that, your body composition and everything is where it's supposed to be. And so, it's definitely an investment, but it's a proactive investment, because I think if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so that's what I'm doing Monday. I'll be working remote out there and doing blood work in between meetings.
I'm going to need one of those probably after the interim. But
Yeah,
but
you
no,
should not do it after, because your levels will be all over the place.
Insane, right? Well, I wanted to bring both of those things up because one of my favorite quotes from Playbook was on day 2 when I was interviewing our friend Montel Jordan. He spoke about learning to prioritize, not balance, right? And even like in the intro to Organized Chaos, I heard it because I was tuned in on it. But like you talk about adding professional and personal life and like all these things that come and for entrepreneurs and small business leaders, right? Like balance is a big topic of conversation and something that a lot of us struggle with. And so this was like one insane, insightful nugget from Playbook, was talking to Montel and him saying like, there is no such thing as balance, right? Because like, how do you actually, by saying that you're balancing your wife with your work, or your kids with your faith, or whatever it might be, you are innately at one point in time going to do disservice to the other. And really, like his way, or the way he preached it, was that it's about prioritization and just understanding, like looking more vertically about like what are the priorities in your life, and that allows you to assign different attention and time and energy and resources in your life based on prioritization versus a seesaw in the way that we often think about balance. And the things that we're doing on Monday are definitely like, stack ranked in our own prioritization of our lives and how we approach Trainual, how we approach family, how we approach health, how we approach relationships, physical, challenges, all of that.
Yeah. And last weekend, so I'll share this too. I posted about this on Instagram for anyone on there, but I took my son on this 3-day crazy adventure. And this is something I had planned for over a year. But we flew out to like the woods in Pennsylvania. It was like an hour and a half south of Pittsburgh for anyone in the East. And we went to this incredible resort, and there was everything from like, rock climbing and whitewater rafting and archery and flashlight tag at night with some other kids, and, arts and crafts and a soapbox derby, and like so much fun, so many memories. But the reason I was able to make that happen was because it was on the calendar a year ago. I booked that a year ago. And so to me, these balance things that we do are because we plan proactively for them. Like you can't just, look at next week and say, how do I put some balance into my life next week? Because for most of us, our calendars fill up. Like you've got whatever project you're working on, or whatever deadline or due date is looming. And if you've got a big task list, it's hard to say, oh, I'm going to take tomorrow morning off, but like when you've got those blocks on your calendar to say, oh, this day I'm out of town, or this day I'm doing a spa day, like whatever, it's a local, I'm doing a staycation. I need, mental health, or I'm going to read a whole book. Those are amazing days, but you don't just find those in your schedule. You have to be proactive about putting them there.
Yeah. You talked about how like I jokingly was the originator of the collect experiences thing because of like pre-Trainual. I was just traveling the world climbing and doing crazy stuff all the time. And that was something I had to reprioritize, right? Like as the business scaled and as attention needed to be put towards some of what we were doing to scale it. And at the same time, like through the course of the past 6 years of, getting married and buying a house, and now 8 months ago, having a son and like I've got 2 dogs and a cat, and like all these things just snowball in your life. You always have more things to take on and more responsibilities. But you are successful with what you put attention to, right? And if you don't do something, people say, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. If you're not doing it, it's because it's not a priority, right? So it would have been easy to not proactively put something like an ultra run across the Grand Canyon on my calendar, right? That takes a lot of time to train for and to like get into the schedule. But at the same time, I know that I value that in my life, and I can't live my life without some sort of epic adventure on like an every 3 to 6 month basis. And so I put the time in and make sure that it does not fall in, outside of being a priority for how I stack my time.
Yeah, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
that's what it's about. So, all right. Well, collect experiences isn't just about ultra marathons and whatever. It's in the consulting business before Trainual is where the value actually originated, and experiences were those kind of things. But experiences were also, just traveling to other countries or going to new restaurants or going to conferences, learning things you've never learned before. And I think that's what we try to help other people do with Playbook. So coming back to Playbook, it was an experience. It is a 2-day thing where people carved out time on their calendars because they want to spend time learning and growing. And so anybody that's listening that was already there, like you get it. You're doing this. You were learning. And so I wanted to do this episode really just for us to talk about, behind the scenes, like what is this event like, putting this together. Maybe we start there and then let's go through the speakers, because since you and I kind of alternated interviews throughout the whole day, the thing that probably a lot of people don't know is that we don't really get to see each other's interviews live because we're prepping in a different room for our next interview. And so I would love to hear your takeaways from your sessions, and I'll share mine from my sessions. But let's start with behind the scenes. So how do we even pull this thing off?
Months and months and months of work and an incredible team. It takes an incredible team to actually pull this off. I mean, the way that we do it is, it feels simple when you tune in because it's literally just Zoom, right? We just send out a Zoom link and it's just like, hop on, tune in. But it's more than just jumping on a webcam and having like a live podcast conversation. Like we want it to feel bigger than that, right? And that's why we have this studio space that we go to. Shout out to our friends at Design Pickle out there in Scottsdale, who let us use their warehouse and all their different spaces to do the live stream. We build a set. Our video producer was like working on building that actual set, getting this whole thing painted, our brand color, and building that sign, and setting up this space that would be like the home base for you and I to conduct the interviews together. But then we've got our satellite studios, where we had just big backgrounds printed and set up tons of lights. We had a crew of 4 people actually running the live stream on site. But yeah, I don't know where you want to dig into first, but it was about 7 months of pre-planning to bring the 2 days to life, to get speakers, to build the site, to build the brand, all of that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So when did the speaker outreach start? It was 6 or 7 months earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that, we joked as soon as the event ended with, Becky, who kind of ran the event. We joked with her that the next week she starts planning for the next one, because it is a long time of reaching out to speakers and curating, who are going to be the right speakers, the right stories that strike a chord with like this small business audience that, because it's not just any kind of success story. It's people that care about people and operations and their culture, and have, built something that is well organized as it's scaling, and they've learned how to do partnerships or learned how to leverage their brand and connections. And we try to infuse a lot of these different elements into the event. And so I think Becky does an amazing job. So shout out to her.
For sure. Yeah.
Should we also tease the idea of next year being a little different?
I mean, maybe like
We're not teasing that yet.
we're toying with the idea of doing like an in-person component, still a hybrid event, a live stream, but having an in-person audience.
Yeah.
But this is very early in the
Very,
concept.
very, very early. So, but if you're listening to this, if you're on LinkedIn listening live, if you're on the podcast listening after, I want to hear from you. Send a message if you have any interest at all in getting together with other attendees in person, because we may do like a sliver of this event that is in person. It'll still be available for free around the world, live stream, whatever, but we may have some kind of like bonus, content or something that happens live in Arizona. So if you're interested in that, let us know, because this could be like kind of a focus group.
But I think that the Playbook event is also representative of like our POV of what a playbook is, because a lot of playbook is like a buzzword in a lot of blog titles and a lot of like content out there that is representative of like the how-to, right? And people kind of use it interchangeably in a lot of ways, with like a playbook being like a guide or a process. And we definitely have a larger POV on the business playbook, yes, stemming from your book, Chris, but also like wanting it to not just be this one singular thing. Like, here's the playbook for X, right? It's like a business playbook. If you tune into the event, you're going to get everything like about sales and about marketing and about operations and about culture and about people. And so the event in and of itself, how we curate the content and build the sessions and get the speakers, it's to represent all of those elements and not just be about one thing, but be the holistic picture of like actionable takeaways for all the aspects of your business and scaling better.
Yeah. Shout out to Ross in the chat who says he'd attend in person. Amazing. We've already got one. So now there's at least 3 of us there live. So we'll see what happens. All right. Do you want to get into the content? So behind the scenes, you already mentioned we set up in this studio. We've got people, several cameras and several rooms in the studio, live streaming. We've got our run of show notes that have, all the guests that we're going to be talking to with some starter questions. But we're also trying to get questions from the audience in the chat live, because most of these things are set up as Q&As, right? They're just very organic conversations. It's not it's not like any kind of keynote or presentation, so we really don't know what to expect when we get on the chat with some people. But our first was Allyson Wes Felix, and what a way to start. So for anyone that doesn't know Allyson's story, she is the most decorated track and field Olympian of all time. If you go Google her name, if you don't recognize it, and you'll remember pictures of her running across the finish line and just collecting gold medals like crazy. She has something like 27 medals across all of her, Olympics and world championships and things like that. And so she was an athlete that was sponsored by Nike. But when she decided to get pregnant and have a child, the sponsorship went on kind of a hiatus. And I guess that's how it used to work in, sponsorships. And she, brought this to the public sphere and said, it feels like this shouldn't be okay. And in doing so, she made this huge decision with her brother that she wanted to start her own brand of shoes and like sponsor herself. And so she created this shoe, Saysh, Saysh, really cool shoes that are made specifically for women. And what blew my mind during this interview is her and Wes are explaining how the mold for shoes, for what we see as women's shoes when you walk into a Foot Locker or Dick's or whatever, the women's shoes are just different colors and sizes. It's a label and some colors. That's all that makes it different from a men's shoe. They're made from the same exact mold, but women's feet are actually pretty different. And so when they discovered this, they were like, let's make the first ever women's shoe. And that was baked into their DNA as a company to say, how do we build this business for women, for supporting women? Such a cool story. Like I learned a lot in that.
I think there's a couple things there, right? It's like, as just a simple takeaway for everybody, who are you building for? And where is the white space and the opportunity of what is like, how are they not being served best, right? If you're making shoes for women, it seems so obvious. It's like, use a mold of a woman's foot to make shoes for women. Great. Nobody's doing that. Do that. Where else across any business opportunities in any markets, in any industries, any personas, like are the true buyer persona not being authentically represented.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. So that's just one. And then the other is around, they have a movement, right? It's a mission in that company. It's not just sell women's shoes. Like, and this was the same with the Giving Keys. This was the same with Little Spoon. Even Allie Webb from Dry Bar was talking about this. She was saying, like, we're not selling blowouts. We're selling, what was it? Happiness and confidence and self-care. Right. And Saysh is selling the like progression of women's equality and that movement. And it struck a chord with me when she spoke to the fact that, like, when you compete as a commodity, competition matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, competition matters when you are a commodity. But when you decommoditize your product by elevating yourself to build for a mission or a social movement, you are now aligned with your competition to continue just raising the bar, right? And it's not a conflict to have competition. It's like it's the rising tide lifting all ships if it matters for the movement.
Yeah, and having a really clear mission like they do makes it easier to be innovative and come up with other suggestions. Like they've got that maternity refund policy, which is incredible. It's during pregnancy and even after a woman has the child, a lot of times their foot size can change by half size or something like that. And so recognizing this from their community, they came up with this policy that said, if you own a pair of Saysh shoes, you can send them back to us and we'll send you a replacement in your new size. Doesn't matter how old they are, just we'll replace them for you. But that's the kind of thing that you don't just make up. You do it because you're so bought into the community and the mission. And there were just like so many examples like that I think any business can learn from. How do you double down on your community and really dedicate yourself to innovating in ways that your competitors wouldn't even dream of? Yeah. Because you know your audience. I loved that. I was thinking about that for the last couple of weeks for us.
I also can't ignore, because we started this conversation, obviously talking about this like giant athletic challenge that I have ahead. I can't ignore the fact that like we hit some parallels between Allyson's athletic career and building business. And for her as an Olympic athlete, right, she made that comment. She was like, you've got 4 years of training that lead to 21 seconds of a chance, right? And if that's not long-term commitment and drive, I don't know what is, right? And so I guess my takeaway from that is just like, yes, there's tons of podcasts and books and things out there about like all the hacks in building business, but we know there's no real hacks. It's just you have to put in the work. You have to be consistent and you have to be dedicated about what you are doing and what you are building. And if you're trying to hack it, if you're looking for that short-term overnight win, like you've got the wrong focus. That's not how you get the gold.
Yeah, totally. And there were some really cool nuggets about strategic planning and how that relates to 4 years. So if you're listening and you haven't heard the full version, check it out on YouTube. Go listen to Allyson and Wes talk about this because there was so much in there. And I love the running parallel with running a business, because when you run, you get out of breath, right? Like it's hard. It takes a toll on your body, and running a business is not easy. It's hard, but you can train for it. You can condition yourself for it, and you can be great at it. And that was an awesome session. So what's up, Pam, in the chat? Happy to share that story. And to our friend in British Columbia, Vancouver, one of my favorite cities. Really cool. Thanks for joining us today. All right, Jonathan, let's move into the Giving Keys. I actually, are you wearing your key? I raced out of the house this morning. Today's like the first day I haven't had it on.
Yep, I've got it.
What's the key? Can you explain this?
So it says train. So the Giving Keys, yes. Caitlin started this. She actually just started making them herself. And she was just like taking these old keys and making jewelry out of it and carving inspirational messages like hope and love and believe and things, and wearing them for herself as inspiration and motivation for what she needed to get through tough times in her life, and also giving them to friends and family, and people loved them. And then she saw a larger opportunity, and this double clicks on like having a mission, right? And so Caitlin actually used the Giving Keys as a way to start tackling homelessness and helping people transition out of homelessness. And so it became, she met a homeless couple who ended up being the first people that would like start making the keys. And so the Pay It Forward mission was rooted in helping people get out of homelessness. And then the giving part of the Giving Keys is because like right now I'm wearing this key and it says train, right? Because I'm training for some big things. The Rim to Rim to Rim, are the Trainual Ironman at the end of the year, the marathon in Antarctica in March. And yet when I feel like I have fulfilled the train mentality, that I don't need that to inspire me anymore, I'm meant to give that key to somebody else who might need it, who might need to take that to inspire their training. And if it didn't say train, if it said love or hope or courage, that's the whole point, is to give it to somebody else to pay it forward. It's really an amazing, authentic business, and I love the product too.
I loved it too. So you remember we were like sitting on my couch at my house and planning for the interviews, and as we're going through and learning her story, I went onto the website and bought a bunch of them for me and you and a couple of our friends that are training for this big event. And then as we're doing the interview, I realized there's like a promo code to save 20% or something. And so if anyone's interested in this, go watch the full interview with her, because you can actually get one for a lot less than what I paid. But they're super cool. And you know what's fun is it kind of like, jingles a little bit as you're walking around, and it's a constant reminder through the day of the phrase that's on there. And I love having that little token. It's actually kind of a throwback to I'm trying to remember the episode. It was Todd, the book that is like when you put on a token like that.
Oh yeah, the alter ego.
Yeah. So the past episode of Organized Chaos, but that message in that book is like, sometimes you wear this token or you put on something, a bracelet, a watch, whatever, and you take on the characteristics of this like alter ego, and you can perform at a higher level. And so I think that the Giving Keys have a little bit of that aspect too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately just about, like, again, building a community around a brand with a mission. Like that's how you find your people. People can smell what your motives are, right? They'll know what you're trying to do. And she found the people that need her most.
Right. Okay, so I think we broke for lunch. Then we came back and had, or maybe this was before lunch, we had Mignon and Natalie. So Mignon Francois, Natalie Dow. So Natalie is with Liquid Death, the water company, which is such a crazy brand. And Mignon is in the cupcake business. So you were interviewing them. What stood out to you about this one?
So yeah, Natalie was employee number 2 at Liquid Death and kind of wore every hat along their scaling journey over the last few years. They absolutely blew up through COVID, and I'm sure people tuning in have seen people drinking sparkling water that looks like beer. That's Liquid Death.
I saw it at a concert recently, and everybody's carrying around the can of Liquid Death like it's a tall, big beer you'd get at a sports game. It's so funny.
Yeah. The biggest thing that stood out, I mean, so many amazing takeaways. Again, all these are on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, on YouTube. So go and watch them. But the biggest thing that pops into my head, Natalie said, you can teach a skill set, but you can't teach passion. She was talking about how they built their team and their hiring process and what they're looking for in new employees. And that's like a non-negotiable, is like you can teach any skill set, but you can't teach passion. And that's it comes through in their brand. It's like, it's a very passionate brand, and it's made by very passionate people.
Yeah, and it was fun to see them play off of each other, both being in the like consumer product space, which, if you're a business that is software like ours, then consumer product is so interesting. And if you're in a service business that, is selling time like an agency, then, SaaS a lot of times is interesting. And you can learn a lot from exploring different types of businesses and how those things apply to you. That's why I loved consulting so much under, before Trainual, was, what you could learn from working with an electrical contractor or a medical office or a retail store. You get these little nuggets that are like, oh, we could use that in our business, but it's not typical in our industry. And so it was fun to hear, some kind of product hacks. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Bombas socks interview from our last year playbook. So that was a good one too.
It's like, when's the last time you like really combed over a resume versus just like had a conversation about somebody's experience? And I feel like that matters more and more these days. I guess back to experiences, right? But that's where passion comes from. And then Mignon, I loved her take on, it often feels like a conflict to like build a really, really great, like kind, compassionate culture versus like build a company that's like really sharp on performance management and able to have the hard conversations, right? Those a lot of times feel in conflict. It's why Radical Candor is an awesome book and people should read that. But Mignon's answer on how she thinks about that is, to be clear is to be kind. Right? And it's so true. It's just like, yes, okay, to be clear is to be kind. Like, not dance around if somebody is like not performing as they should, but like let them know and be clear. That's not being a jerk. That's helping them, and that helps create a better culture.
Yeah, and I think that clarity equals kindness proliferates throughout your business in a lot of ways. Like I think I posted on LinkedIn yesterday or 2 days ago about us communicating our specific financials and cash position and whatever as it relates to the market, and a lot of companies doing hiring freezes or layoffs. The clarity is what builds trust, and it's kind. It's actually like nice of you to build some clarity with your people. And I think that relates to job expectations. It relates to performance. It relates to so many things. It's, when you're not clear, when you're confusing, you leave a lot of room for interpretation, and people can make up their own problems or make up their own issues. And so that clear is kind. I love that thread. All right. So then we went into one of my favorites of the I mean, I guess they're all great, but I was so excited to talk to Jason Fried from Basecamp, 37 Signals. Hey, I followed his stuff for a long time. He's got his newest book, It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. If you're a podcast listener here at Organized Chaos, you heard me interview DHH, his co-founder, partner, and that interview, we could have talked for a week. There was so much to cover.
You're holding up this book.
Yeah,
I'm obsessed with it. Yeah.
So Jonathan, if you're listening to the audio, he's holding up Rework. Same. I read that back in, I think it was 2010 or something when it came out. And it's just such a practical, like, way of doing business. Like that's what I found myself as I'm reading through that. That book specifically is more like, it's like a picture every 3 pages, an illustration and a phrase that a quote that you'd want to like put on your wall in the office. It was so foundational for me in running my first business. And so yeah, I've followed these guys over the years, and there's a lot of things that I think Basecamp has done differently. And they've kind of, whenever the market zigs, they zag, like whenever everybody's, charging per user or something for years and years and years, they just had flat rate pricing, like $99, unlimited users, whatever, just use our tool. Everybody's raising money. They said, nope, we're never going to raise money. We're just going to bootstrap it. Everyone's hiring 500 employees. They said, nope, we can do this with 40 people spread around the world. Everybody's in a headquarters. They're remote. Everybody's, so many decisions that they've made have been counterintuitive and contrarian. And it makes you challenge the way that you're thinking about running your own business. And so right or wrong, agree or disagree with how they're doing things, I think the challenge is what's important, because not everything they're doing, I don't agree with every single thing they're doing. I'm going to run my business how I run it, but they're prompting so many interesting conversations. That's what I loved about it. And so just so happened that like 12 hours before I'm interviewing Jason, they roll out Basecamp 4 quietly, very quietly, and didn't even promote it much. But if you went to their website, their pricing changed, their product changed, their website changed, everything changed. And so in the hours leading up to this interview, we're like poring over their website and trying to figure it out. And he kind of did like a little bit of an unveil or release. And so that's fun to watch if anyone goes back.
The first public place that he talked about Basecamp 4.
Yeah,
was
which
cool.
was really cool. Another thing that he said that is just one of their principles that I love is talking about how much the owner's word weighs. That the owner's word weighs a ton. And I'm sure you feel this, Jonathan, as a partner, co-founder here. When you say something in a meeting, or when you just offhand make some comment, the people on our teams can take that to mean like, oh, drop everything else. This is the thing Chris cares about.
Yeah.
And the same has happened to me when like I used to get emails, and I'd see an email, kind of a cold email, and think, oh, it's kind of interesting. Like this is in whoever's domain, and I would forward it to them. And then the next thing you know, they're like setting up demos and getting proposals and coming back to me and be like, yeah, we can use this service, and it's $32,000, and you just need to like sign this contract. And I'm like, hold up, what? Like, how did we even get here? And they're like, oh, you sent me that email. I figured you wanted this done. And when you think about that simple example, like how many times does that happen in a business with just the owner coming in, or the a leader coming in and saying something that lacks clarity? Back to our last point, to their team. It was a great lesson, a great conversation we had about that with Jason. How specific you need to be about not derailing your team when you're the leader,
And not just from a standpoint of the work being done, but also how you work, right? Like you're setting an example, whether you want to or not. How you work, when you work, the ways you show up, that is setting an example to anybody like below you in the organization, and they're going to think that's how they need to show up. That's how they'll be expected to work, whether you want to or not, right? It's like you hear people become a celebrity, and they're like, "Oh, I never wanted to be a role model." It's like, well, you have to be conscious of your influence.
Yeah.
Eyes and attention are on you, and you are influencing people whether you intend to or not.
Right. Yeah. So the conversation with Jason was fun. It was very rooted in company culture and just how you run your business. The newest book, It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work, is, you hear so many people say when you ask them like, hey, how are things going at work? It's like, oh, it's crazy. Things are so busy. It's crazy. And the idea of this book is like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can actually focus and, work 40 hours and have realistic growth expectations. And like, you don't have to self-impose so much pressure and stress the heck out of everybody.
Right.
So it's a really cool philosophy around running business. Definitely check that out if that's something you're focused on. All right.
We went to Little Spoon.
Little Spoon. Yeah. So talk us through this one.
So Lisa Barnett.
Little Spoon, you have some personal experience with, right?
Yeah. So my son Chase eats Little Spoon. We've got the smoothies and the little purees and stuff that we get on a shipment every 2 weeks. And that's the model, is that like Lisa saw a gap in the baby food market of like the standard out there is these processed shelf stable foods, non-refrigerated foods that are just out there that everyone's getting in these jars, right? And she was like, I want to make just real food that you actually have to refrigerate, that like it right, that it comes every 2 weeks in a freezer pack, and you put it in the fridge, and it's like it goes on this plan of like how you introduce like a certain amount of foods and what types of foods to your child, and it's just real stuff. And so we started using it. Chase loves it. We love the brand, and so we had an awesome conversation with Lisa just about like that. Kind of how they brought it to life. And Lisa has a unique background coming from venture capital. She's sharp. She knows how to build a business plan. And also, like, if you listen to that session, it's a masterclass in performance marketing as well. We kind of at the end go pretty deep into like their acquisition channels, the way they're using influencers, like their CAC to LTV on certain paid performance areas and what's working and not. But at its heart, how they scaled was customer referrals. It was getting the community to be your biggest marketing engine, because parents talk, and they knew that. It's like, and I know this. Alex, my wife, just started a Substack because she's got like all her friends that are actually like hitting her up because they're starting to have babies or think about families, and they're like, well, what'd you pack for your hospital bag, and like, what did you start feeding Chase, and what bottles do you use? And now she's trying to just share information that she's finding because it's helpful to her. there is like nothing but the most virality inside of the mom and general parental community. And Lisa capitalized on that with a great product to build more, again, a social movement around baby food.
I don't know if this exists, but as you were saying that, I was thinking about how when we had, our kids, both times going to the hospital, like packing that like go bag, when it's time
Yeah.
is a real thing. And so you get the bag and you get the like whatever the first outfit and blankets and this and that. And is anybody selling like a prepackaged go bag?
Go bag.
Yeah. Like why not just have like an all-in-one, here's your baby kit, rather than have to assemble it all.
That's interesting. That's literally the first post Alex wrote on her Substack, which is called "Babies Don't Come with a Manual."
I love it.
Yeah.
But they could, and she should be writing it in Trainual using our public share feature. No, I know that's not really what it's for, but
Yeah.
I just think there's opportunity there. So, all right, but the one of the key themes you got into with Lisa was kind of referral marketing, right? Because when you've got something that's so different, refrigerated baby food, real food that expires, whatever, if people like it, like you, like Alex, you're telling other people. And so how is that like a flywheel? What was she saying about that?
So they initially got it going with some good SEO, their foundational posts. They went into the communities, they wrote some stuff themselves, and just by starting to actually like write about their philosophy and write about what they were trying to build and do and their product and what it stood for, that just got picked up and shared in, across mom blogs and parent communities and all those different channels. And they just leaned into it. They found their influencers. They figured out who has the ear of new parents, right? And they went big there. And then they got this even surfaced when in a pre-call with Seth Godin. I know we're not on his session yet, but when we were like talking to him before Playbook, he was going to post about it. He was going to tweet about the event, and he's like, yeah, I can tweet about it, but like the best thing you could do is just like email everybody who's already registered and just ask them to invite 2 or 3 other people. It's like, that is as simple as it. Like, it's like, if you've already said that you want to come in and you're into this content and this community, like who else might be? Just ask them, right? And that's what Lisa and the team did, just to like get people to start sharing and talking.
That's funny. Yeah. I wasn't on the pre-call with Seth, but like, yeah, what a simple idea. I don't think we ask people for referrals enough. And it's something I used to do in the consulting business when I had a services business. I was asking every time I would do a project, I'm like, well, do you know any other businesses that could benefit from this? And everyone is like, oh yeah, let me introduce you to this person and this person. Like, we just had drinks the other night and like they need you more than I do. Like it's such a simple way to get business. So I love that. All right. So then we wrapped up, right, with Seth. Seth was the cap at the end of the day. And what an awesome guy. What a cool conversation. I mean, he has 20 best-selling books. He was sitting in a view just like yours with the bookshelves in the back, except the difference was he wrote every book on his bookshelves in the back. And so you'd recognize, the linchpin and the purple cow and like the famous covers of his books. And
speaking of that, though, we opened it up with him asking a question. We were like, all right, so you've got all these best-selling books, right? And like his books influence so many people. They're great, right? And people look to them as the book that like changed their lives. And so we asked Seth, like, what is the book that changed your life? And his answer was, the book that will change your life is the most is the book that you write yourself, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
100%. I mean, when I like this book, my book only came out last year, but I was writing it in my head for the last 20 years, And so when you finally get that on paper, it's a really pivotal milestone, and how this book has influenced Trainual as a company, the, tens of thousands of people or whatever that have read a copy of it. The opportunities it's given me for speaking or for, being on other shows, so much of it is is life-changing, not just personally or financially, but it's you're making a difference. It's impactful, and it's impacted me certainly more than any single book that I've read, just by nature of how it's, impacted my day-to-day and what I'm doing. So I 100% agree. But he didn't totally cop out. He did give some other suggestions. So if you want to see Seth's suggestions, you can read a little bit about that. We talked about writer's block. We talked about creativity and like, does it end? And I loved his perspective there, because he's written something like 8 years of daily blog posts or 10 years of daily blog posts.
More than that. I mean, it's like
What?
8,000.
Oh, 8,000. That's
over
what it was.
8,000 posts every single day.
Gosh. And you think, how do you possibly have new content every single day? Well, at the beginning of this, we opened up with talking about collect experiences. And I think if you're the type of person that's aware of the experiences you're collecting, if you're aware of the dialogue that you're having with people, of your thoughts throughout the day, you could be stopped at a red light and look over and notice something, and it triggers a lesson or a thought that you can be creative about. That was a huge unlock for me, actually. We went to that conference that was talking about, content production with Jeremy, and a big unlock was just, what is an action, something in your daily life that prompts a lesson that makes you think, oh, this applies to other areas in my life. Like, how does this challenge of what I'm doing when I'm running and I trip on a rock or something, how does that apply to other areas of my life? And you can really just make these simple lessons, these nuggets that become incredible raw material for writing, whether it's a blog or recording. All my little tiny daily episodes come from that sort of inspiration. And it's not that I have a bank of 8,000 ideas like Seth Godin. It's that every day or couple of days I'm coming up with new ones. And that's the mindset I think that he was really advocating.
I think that's an awesome way to also hone your analogy skills, which are which are at the core of great communication, speaking, marketing, etc.
Yeah. So he used the jazz musician analogy, right? Because it was just like, you keep learning, you get better as an artist. Like, there's levels and levels and levels of being a musician. And he talked about that a little. It was also fun that we were emailing back and forth about like audio speakers and stuff that he is interested in. And so it's always fun to talk to someone like this and then just realize you have like totally obscure things in common or things that don't get written about in all the books. And so I love being able to dig into someone's personal interests too.
And around the like consistent output of content, like forcing yourself to share your message and share your ideas, right? Like that is another way to find your audience in the way that we talked about Caitlin finding the audience for the Giving Keys, right? It's another way to find your people. And what Seth spoke to with that is like, it matters more to matter to a few than be seen by many, right? And I think in this world of just social media and influence and unicorns and all of that, where it seems like so many are chasing volume over impact. And we even knew this actually just looking at like the attendees of this year versus last year. Like we actually had more people register for last year's Playbook event, but we had more people attend this year's Playbook event because we found a tighter community who connected more with the content we presented this year.
Right. Yeah, definitely an upgrade. All right. So that brings us to day 2. We've only got, I was just looking at the clock. We've got like 8 minutes left to record this. And so we're going to have to race through this. So let me just rattle off day 2, kind of the lineup. We started with the unveiling of some new product features. This is our annual event where we're announcing some cool things in the product. That was super fun.
What'd you announce real quick? Hit list.
So we talked about the role chart where you can take all of your roles, responsibilities, and build not just an org chart with your people, but a role chart of how those roles interact with each other, which is super impactful when you're building the future of your organization. When one person wears a lot of hats, you can have one person that sits in a lot of roles, but you can visualize that through our new feature. So that was really exciting. And then we rolled out Trainual tags. Let's see if I have one within reach. I don't. They're in my backpack. The little physical tags that you can put anywhere in your office, on your equipment, in your trucks, in your inventory, with your customer locations, and touch your phone with an near field communication, kind of like an Apple Pay, to pop up your Trainual content right on the phone. So that's been really exciting to be shipping physical products out. Then we announced our Trainual Capture, which is a browser extension that lets you record everything you're doing in your screen and kind of writes the steps for you. We announced Trainual Context, which lets you access any of your Trainual content anywhere on the internet based on the URL that it pops up on the page. So you have the info you need wherever you need it. And then we had a certification program that we brought live. So if you go to trainual.com/get certified, you can for free become a power user and the champion at your organization and get a little badge put on LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. So,
and then e-signatures, because we had Makita PandaDoc right on day one. So so Makita is an integration partner now with PandaDoc fueling e-signatures on the policies.
Yeah, so jam-packed. So we announce all that stuff. Then you go into a quick Montel, our friend Montel. If anybody wasn't at Playbook 2021, go on to Spotify right now, Apple Music, wherever you get your music. Search for Montel Jordan and Trainual. And instead of the "This is how I do it," you're going to find "This is how you do it," which is a remix with us. And so Montel's been a friend of the company. He is now a partner, has stock in the company, and it's been so fun to collaborate with him. So you and him talked on his car ride. We already talked about
we hit that, but yeah, everybody check it out on Spotify. Montel and Trainual.
There you go. We brought in Candy Valentino and Connie S. Falls, amazing consultants, thought leaders, talking about just this current market and how to approach documentation. They got real tactical on how to actually document the knowledge in your business. Dan Tyre, who is a friend of mine and employee 6 at HubSpot, incredible guy. He kind of invented the term smarketing, sales and marketing working together. I think he says schmarketing. He puts a CH in there.
I would say Dan's single quote that matters more for the entirety of anybody doing sales right now than anything else is help, don't sell. Right? Yeah. I'm so sick of every single DM from every cold contact on LinkedIn. I'm sick of every cold email because it's all the same playbook. It's played out and it's bad. It's a bad playbook. So help, don't sell.
Yes. What we call them, bad operating procedures or BOPs.
Broken operating.
Broken BOPs. Yeah. Too many BOPs. And then we finished day 2 with Allie Webb, of course, co-founder of the Dry Bar. Incredible scaling story. All of these are worth a listen, and they'll all be separate episodes on this podcast. And we also had cool sessions mixed in for actual Trainual customers. So we don't have to get too deep into that, but if you use the Trainual product, there are sessions of just a total teardown of customer accounts, rebuilding customer accounts. We did an extreme home makeover edition of somebody's account. We had customer awards, featured our top people. So it was really fun to just see how people are using the product.
The whirlwind of a couple days.
It was crazy. So next year, we're going to do it all again. We've done it now. That'll be year 4. I don't know if you saw this, Jonathan. I posted something on Instagram in a story of renewing all the domains because we have the domains like Playbook 2022 and 2023 and 2020, I think through 2030. And when I posted that, I had like 3 people message me that's like, I just bought 2031. I'm like, oh, great. Awesome. So we'll have to change the name eventually a decade out, or maybe we'll be doing something different. We'll be meeting in the metaverse instead of on a URL.
Maybe the URL doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. All right. This has been so fun. I love doing these casual recaps with you, Jonathan. Hopefully anybody that's listening took some replay nuggets away from just our what's still racking around in our brains, but definitely go watch the full sessions. If anything caught your attention, look it up on YouTube. These are great commute material. They're great for your morning walks or runs or your treadmill or whatever you do while you're cleaning the house. Awesome content. And like Dan Tyre said, we're trying to help as much as possible. That's why we do this, because we want to help your business succeed. We want to help your business grow. We want to help it be more organized so that you're a little less stressed out. And that's what we do. Any final words, Jonathan?
No, I think you said it well. Definitely tune into the sessions and get the real content. This was just the appetizer, but no, thanks for having me. This was fun. Great recap, and I'll see you maybe for lunch on Sunday. I fly in around 12:30.
All right, that sounds good. You're gonna need some calories before that crazy canyon run.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Jonathan, thanks for coming on. Everyone else, we'll see you next time on the next Organized Chaos Live. Be sure to check out our episodes Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, quick nuggets, and Friday, longer interviews like this one. Thank you so much for following along. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, @Chris Ronzio. I'll see you next time.